Luz, we need you here. Shelley, if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Before we call the roll, I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of all of us to publicly congratulate our member, Shelley Smith-Fano, for the wonderful honor that the governor of Florida has bestowed upon this community and her in particular in appointing her son, Carlos, to be the lieutenant governor of the state of Florida. And I think this is something that we all share, and we're all proud, Shirley. Thank you.
Very much, Mayor Perry. Thank you.
Happy New Year to all. And Maria Luisa, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Gonzalez?
Here.
Mr. Evia? Mr. Holland? Here. Mr. Martinez? Rodriguez Pina? Here. Mr. Sanabria? Here. Ms. Fano? Here. Ms. Weinberg? Here. Secretary Pago? Here. Treasurer Fernandez Guzman? Here. Vice Chair Gutierrez? Here. Chair Ferre? Here. We have a quorum.
All right, declaration of voting conflicts.
Does any of the board members have any conflicts to declare? None, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any citizens' comments today? Maria Luisa? He did not request.
Thank you, Chair. Carlos Garcia from Rollback Tolls. And I'm encouraged by the new policy regarding the public comment. There's no pre-registration, am I not? Am I correct, right? There's no pre-registration.
There is none.
Okay, which is, I think, is a move in the right direction. I wanted to make a couple of points. It was discussed in the previous Finance Committee meeting, the user discount program or the frequency program. And I would say that, you know, ask the board to work diligently in the implementation of the program, because I do agree with some of the comments that the board of some members made, that it is important because it was mentioned, it was part of the increase, and people are expecting it, and I think that you know, you should deliver on it in a timely fashion. And also a suggestion that I would like to see be implemented this year is the video recording of all committee meetings. I noticed that the only meetings that are video recorded are the board meetings, and I think that having the facilities here and the equipment to do it, I think would be a good idea, because there are some people that would want to listen to some of the discussions being held at the committee level, not just the board of directors level. So those would be my two suggestions. That's basically it. You know, Happy New Year to everyone, and I hope that this year is a very successful year for all of us.
Mr. Garcia.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a conflict on item C, for the record.
All right, let the record reflect Rodriguez Pina has declared a conflict in item C. Okay. We now are in approval of the summary minutes. Unfortunately, they're not included in your packet, and so if it's all right, Richard, for us to roll this thing over to the next.
Should be a motion to defer those minutes to the next board meeting.
Okay, is there a motion to defer? Is there a second? Seconded for the discussion on the motion. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor for the deferral say aye. Aye. Opposed? So it passes. We now have the executive director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and everyone. Welcome back and Happy New Year. And I'm going to make my report. I'm going to focus on the issue that you asked me to at the last intergovernmental meeting to bring the item before the full board. But before I get to that item, just to update on various issues that have happened from the last board meeting in December. December 18th, as everyone knows, we held our date delegation workshop on tolling. Presentations were made by the Florida DOT, the Turnpike, MDX, and Miami-Dade County, discussed on the hows, what's, whys of tolling, and especially where is it going, where's the money going to. I mentioned it at Budget and Finance, but I want to mention it again today. We had a very smooth transition from our previous Road Ranger vendor to our current Road Ranger vendor. On January 1st, our new service provider fleet took effect. As many folks in the community will notice, there's a different fleet, and the vehicles look different. It's a new firm who has never done business with MDX, so we applaud them. And we congratulate not only them for winning, but I also want to acknowledge the previous vendor for their cooperation and helping during this transition. It was very smooth, and thank you. I do want to mention and put a plug in, and I know it's in the comments at the end of the meeting, but our strategic master plan meeting on Thursday morning. The importance of that meeting, it lays the groundwork of what MDX could be in the future. It also helps us lay the groundwork of building our long-range transportation plan that we have to coordinate with the MPO. So that whole discussion is going to be a lot more encompassing than it has been in the past. It's going to look at what the vision of the authority should be in the future. Now, before I get to the House bill, just recently, Board Member Sanabria, Rodriguez Pina, and Board Member Weinberg attended Team Florida with me, and Mr. Ferre, of course, is a member of the commission. It was a Team Florida Transportation Commission meeting, and it was very interesting to hear the report from the Secretary, the $8.8 billion program, which is a record for the Florida DOT, I believe, as a 5-year program. But what was very telling and what was very important to hear is later this year, the federal gas tax, the transportation tax goes broke. And the money will be, from the federal standpoint, have to be borrowed from the general fund unless something is done at the federal level. Now, by August, it'll go broke. Now, the significance of this is that there are many policy papers being written out there in the country. And it is common knowledge that the days of financing highway transportation projects, especially on limited access facilities, without a toll or a user fee, a direct user fee, those days are long gone. And you can see that in the policies of the state of Florida that basically says any new capacity should consider express lanes or toll lanes of the such. New bridges should consider it, but it's not just in Florida, it's all over the country that it's happening. It's a real effect. As far as the transportation bill, and I wanted to bring this up to the board, MAP 21, which is the last authorization, had a 2-year lifespan. It goes through 2016. Discussions are in place already to reauthorize it. As it relates to the Miami-Dade Expressway Authority, the two significant issues in that transportation bill, number one is interoperability, national interoperability. MAP 21 called for national interoperability by 2016, and they let the industry take care of it. We have made many strides around the country, and primarily in Southeast U.S. with interoperability. As you know, Florida is already interoperable. Florida is already interoperable with North Carolina. We will soon be interoperable with Georgia, and we're working agreements with Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. So the Southeast, in essence, will be interoperable regionally. We already know that the Northeast with Easy Pass is interoperable. And we feel that this move to a consolidated or a centralized back office, which is in the procurement process and 6 teams are shortlisted or invited to propose, is the first step of hub-to-hub communication and achieving national interoperability. So that's significant to us. The second significance is the TIFIA program. The TIFIA program is going to be reauthorized in some shape. We are looking and trying to advocate for more flexibility, especially to non-federal aid agencies like MDX. And the issue here is that if we borrow $1 of TIFIA of money, we have to federalize a project. So sometimes the gain doesn't outweigh the pain, in essence, with all the paperwork and process that you would have to go to get a TIFIA loan. The rates in TIFIA are still very competitive, and it's something we should look at. but we're going to advocate on that part. Now, the last item that I did want to talk about is 353. And at the direction of the board,
Explain what 353.
House Bill 353 is filed by local legislator Nunez, has major effects on Miami-Dade Expressway. I break it down into 4 categories because it's really 4 categories. The first one is that it infringes on Miami-Dade Expressway's financial independence as it relates to bonding and applying rates for CPI. In essence, it's indicating that we're not allowed to do that. We can only issue bonds or refinance current bonds. We can't issue any new bonds. That's the first one. The second issue is as far as CPI. It references a Florida statute that allows for CPI at the Department of Transportation, primarily the Turnpike. We don't use that Florida statute. The board sets policy on rates. But what it says in that portion of the bill is that any agency that's going to adjust their toll rates for CPI must obtain a resolution passed by a supermajority of the commission, of the county commission, that it traverses. In essence, in a home rule county, whether it's Miami, Pinellas, or other home rules, if, in this case, Florida's Turnpike wanted to do a CPI, it would require a supermajority resolution by the county commission. So that's the first category of the bill. Specific to MDX, it says that the rates would have to be reverted to January of 2014. In essence, if you did the toll rate adjustment for the new rates on 836 and 12, you would have to undo them and go back to whatever was prevailing in January of 2014. The second part of the bill is on governance. It speaks to the size and composition of the board. It speaks to changing the size from 13 to 9, where the composition would be 4 appointed by the governor, 4 appointed by the county commission, and the 9th member would be the district secretary. In essence, it would be a 5-4 state majority, and that's the second part of the bill, of the proposed bill. It also speaks there as far as committee members and appointments of committee members, that no member of an Expressway Authority committee of an Expressway Authority board can serve on multiple committees, the transportation committees, and it spells out the Metropolitan Planning Organization or the Florida Transportation Commission. And then the last piece that affects us is that it eliminates, in essence, eliminates our ability to partner with any other agency. It strikes the entire section on Miami-Dade Expressway Authority or this toll agency being able to partner with Miami-Dade County, the state of Florida, or such on projects that are not specifically toll-related. For instance, we wouldn't be able to partner with the airport on the entrance to the, we would not have been able to partner with the airport on the entrance to the Airport Central Boulevard. We would not be able to do the Miami Intermodal Center. We would not be able to partner with the state on 826, 836, or other projects. So that piece there is a major impact to this community. So I wanted to lay this out, and I know the board wanted to have this conversation as a board. We have taken the direction that we had at Intergovernmental, and I'll be working close with the chair of Intergovernmental Committee, Ms. Fano, and we will be working with our team of legislative consultants to inform and educate as many legislators as we can, not only of the direct impacts, but the unintended impacts. And we had those conversations not only at operations, but at budget and finance. And just recently, I've met with a couple of legislators, and I think it's very important that there's an understanding that it was never a debate about whether we should close the system and everybody pay their fair share. The debate was really whether you apply 70 cents or 60 cents. That debate has escalated to a bill being filed, and the impacts of that bill might be more costly than the differential of the 10 cents. And that is real, and we will be disclosing that, and we have to disclose it. And now we'll put numbers to it. Our treasurer made the comment at Budget and Finance that the market is still in our favor, so we'll see what impacts that has, and we'll evaluate what that bond deal would mean. But the reality is, at the end of the day, the projects that we're financing are projects that support the economy of not only the state of Florida, but specifically Miami-Dade County. As far as this current work program, and Mr. Toledo mentioned the work program, the bulk of the money, 85% of the revenues, are going towards finalizing 836 from Red Road to I-95. We're also going to fix the interchange at 87th Avenue to give better access to the trucks and the commercial vehicles that go in and out of the West Cargo area. The other projects that we're financing in this port program are extending the Don Shula over the Turnpike out to the Kendalltown Miami Airport, starting design on the western extension of the Gratney. That is the bulk of what's being proposed. And following the policy of this board, not all of the projects are being 100% financed with tolls, with municipal bonds. We are doing pay-as-you-go as well, and that is a very a conservative, way of approaching it. So I wanted to lay that on the table, and I guess the board, I'll go along with what the board's will is, but you guys wanted to have a conversation on this at the full board level, so I'll stop there, Mr. Chairman.
What we'll do is, after we vote on items 9A through C, we will get into a discussion at that time on this issue.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, we have now the General Counsel's report.
No report, sir.
MPO Representative.
Mr. Chairman, at this time during the General Counsel report, typically annually, we have ethics training for the board. What we do is the ethics minute. Ms. Leslie used to do the ethics minute. I think Ms. Francine Steelman is going to do the ethics 30 seconds, but we're going to go over a specific topic so we can touch on our ethics policy.
Ms. Steelman?
Yes, you're going to have to speak really quickly.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about voting conflicts. We're going to be talking about voting conflicts and some of the revised definitions that are important to understand for the work that you do. But as an MDX board member, you are classified as a local public officer. And as a local public officer, there are some rules regarding what you can and can't vote on. So quite simply, you are prohibited from voting on any business matter that would inure to you as a member a special private gain or loss. Now, this is interesting as a public official, a public officer, because actual knowledge is not required. The fact that it will, whether you know it or not, constitutes a conflict under Florida law. And then the second part to that is, if you know, now this is actual knowledge, if the member knows that the vote will inure a special private gain or, special private gain or loss to any member of the principals by whom you're retained, your business associate or relatives, that also constitutes a conflict. So very quickly, in May 2013, there were two key definitions that were revised regarding conflicts. And the first is principal by whom retained. And just quite simply, it means that any individual or entity that for compensation, salary, pay, consideration, has permitted or directed you to act on their behalf, or that you would act on their behalf. That includes any clients that you have, or the parent of the company that you work for, or the subsidiary of that company. That is considered a principal who has retained you. So that they broadened that definition. Now, regarding the special private gain or loss, that simply is just an economic benefit or harm that inures to the officer, their relative, business associate, or principal. Now, there is an exception that was carved out in the statute, and that is dealing with it as a class. So unless the effect, unless the special gain or interest affects a class of people that you or your client is involved in, it might not constitute a conflict. But in order to determine that, there's 4 criteria that need to be evaluated to determine whether, in fact, it is a conflict. And that is the size of the class affected by the vote, the nature of the interest involved, the degree to which the interest of all the class members are affected, and then, of course, the degree to which the officer or the business associate or business principal, or how they're affected in relation to the class of people. Okay, so if there's a voting conflict, this is something that you all know and are very good about. You need to abstain from voting, disclose a special private gain or loss to the board, and that's done through the forms that you file, the Form 8B, and then just file the Form 8B. Now, generally what happens with this board is that you guys are very good about filing conflicts, and then you don't participate in the discussions. But one of the things I want to make clear is that under the Florida statutes, you can participate in discussions. So you would still file your Form 8B, you have to disclose a conflict, but that does not preclude you from discussing the matter. And so if a conflicted board member wishes to participate in the discussions, they can do so. They need to file the Form 8 with our secretary, Mary Louisa. And if you come to a committee meeting or a board meeting and you didn't know that you would have a conflict until you saw it on the agenda, that's okay. You just need to orally disclose it, that you have a conflict, and then you have 15 days to file the Form 8B with Mary Louisa. Now, our obligation as an agency, once a conflict has been disclosed, which is what we already do, we incorporate the disclosure of the conflict into the meetings, and then we provide all the other board members with copies of the submitted 8B form, which is already happening. And one thing that we haven't done, because you usually don't participate, is that if you participate in discussions after you've disclosed the conflict and you choose to participate, which you can, at the following meeting, the secretary has to read Form 8B publicly into the minutes of the next, or into the record rather, at the next meeting. Is there any questions about that? Okay. And that's it. So if you ever have any questions about conflicts or any other ethics issues, I'm here to help.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francine. MPO.
The MPO meeting was canceled this month. In the previous MPO meeting, there was an extension at the very last minute. It didn't take more than 5 minutes of discussion, which will cost, what, $8 million for the next step in the process of Tri-Rail and the private sector FEC evaluation as to whether or not this is going to go forward. And that will come before the MPO, what, in another year?
Yeah.
I think so it pushes this off. The meter will run, and it costs us $8 million more. But the big decision is a year away from now.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Have they figured out, or have they already given the information to the MPO as to where they're going to get the operational funds? Because I see that they're spending money on the study to figure out what the leg is going to be.
The study is paid for by federal funds.
Right.
The operation, of course, will not be paid for by federal
Right.
funds. And of course, that's what the big decision is going to be when it comes in a year. Is it a year, Gus?
So in other words, but they don't know what the amount is, so
Well, I think they
we
have.
can study
I
it
think
and
they have
program it,
estimates.
but never know how we're going to pay
I'll
for
tell you
it.
what the estimates are. The estimates are $35 million a year. But those are estimates, and they're not final figures. And I think the MPO will have those, or the studies will bring us those final figures before the decision is made.
Okay, did they present anything as to how many stops that train is going to have?
Yes,
Did they minimize the amount of stops?
They are tentatively coming up, and as I remember, it was, what, 23 stops? Yeah, but I'll be happy to get you the exact figure.
It would be good to know, because maybe one day we might see it, our grandkids or our grandkids' kids,
I don't understand. What do the grandkids have to do with this?
that our grandkids, their kids might see this train ever
I
happening.
see. Okay.
It's a joke.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I think this is an important decision that this community has to make in the next couple of years. The governor, of course, is pushing hard on this because, as you all know, Central Florida already has their deal, and it is going to cost, I think, more than $35 million a year for the state to subsidize the Central Florida system. but at the end of the 7th year of operation, the local community has to pick up the full tab. So in other words, they're headed in the same way we are, and we'll see exactly where this all ends up. But it seems to me that this community and Broward and Palm Beach and others affected will not be any different from other communities in the state where similar projects are underway or functioning. All right, so anything else on the MPO? Treasurer's report.
Marie, would you kindly walk us through the financials, please?
Yes, Mr. Treasurer, thank you. The Treasurer's report before you is for the 6-month period through December 31st, 2013. Our toll and fee revenue for the 6-month period was posted at $65.1 million compared to the forecast of $63.5 million, which leaves us with a positive variance of 1.5. Included in our toll and fee revenue for the 6-month period is an accrual of about a little bit under $4 million. And this is really associated with our toll-bay plate customers and our iToll customers. This is really related to the delay in our transition with our new vendor. So we felt it was appropriate to accrue that additional revenue. So overall, our total revenue is 66.3 compared to the forecast of 64.3. Again, a positive variance of $1.9 million. The operating and maintenance expense pretty much is posted at $20.5 million for the 6-month period, right in line to where the budget is, a little bit less than within 1%. One item that's just notable on the expenditures is our legal expenses. It's about $400,000 year-to-date over budget, and that mainly due to the ongoing litigation. Overall, very positive news. Net revenue is $15.5 million, and that is a 2.2 positive variance overall to the forecast.
Did you want anyone to add any color to that accrual piece, Marie?
I believe Steve can speak to the transition and give you an update.
That would be helpful. Bless you.
Good afternoon, board members. Mr. Chairman, per your request, here we go. This is an update to the transition that MDX staff has undertaken from the back office from our previous Amtech or Amtez solution. And what this does is it breaks down the particular components of the back office that we're transitioning. The collections of all the legacy transactions. This is all the transactions that were on the ETC system have all moved and transitioned to our collection agency, LES Duncan, and that is live. That is currently working. They are in the collection mode, and they'll be ramping up as we go through the month of February. The upgraded back office host, which was our legacy system with UTS, we've upgraded the servers, relatively gave it more horsepower, and provided some other functionality, and that's done through TransCore, and that's live. The enhanced image review system, which is through Q3 America, we did a soft launch in December of 2013 to begin reviewing all the images. The reviewing of the images allows us to collect approximately about 52% of our transactions through the image toll process where it matches to a SunPass account. That's why we wanted to do that soft launch. Then we'll do the full launch, which is all components of the image review process in March of this year. The SunPass account interface, that's through TransCorp and the Florida Turnpike Enterprise, that's live. That allowed us to do the SunPass transactions, which is about 85% of our revenue, without missing a beat. The inclusion in January of this year where we began doing the eye-tolling from the images that we were reviewing from the soft launch, we were able to recover $1.6 million. So that's why Marie had put those numbers in. We're meeting those numbers. The toll-by-plate billing system, which will be done by Credit Protection Agency, CPA, is scheduled to go live in February of 2014. That'll be the full billing process of all the transactions that we get back from iTolls that weren't paid. And finally, the centralized customer service center which the vendor is to be determined, as the executive director pointed out. The 6 proposers who gave us oral presentations have been asked to present their proposals to the group. The expectation is, the plan now is August, September of 2015 to go live. So that's just over a year away.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions related to the financial report or the backroom update?
So in other words, to summarize, in quoting you, we haven't missed a beat on the backroom update so far.
Say that again, I missed that.
You said that we haven't missed a beat, and I'm just quoting you, and I'm just paraphrasing and saying that so far so good.
So far, so good. Yes, sir, Mr. Chair.
We plan to miss a beat. We're on schedule for everything else. Entertain a motion to approve the financial report.
Is there a motion to approve the financial report?
So move.
Second, further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. We're now at the committee reports, the joint budget and finance. Anything you want to add
Sir,
to the committee reports? All right, so we're going to the, well, we have to go to the consent agenda next, right? The consent agenda of travel approval, is there a motion on the consent agenda? Moved, second. Is there further discussion on item 7A? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? So now we're on the regular addendum, which are the items that come from the committee. So we have A, B, and C. So we start with item 9A.
Okay, MDX procurement contract number RFQ 1402, MDX work program 836-25050, 836-31.050, and 30036.050, construction engineering inspection services for State Road 836, extension westbound access ramp, State Road 836 infrastructure modifications for open road tolling, west section, and State Road 836 overhead sign structure coating to be endorsed by, which was endorsed by the Operations Committee on 1/22/14. The motion is for approval of Technical Evaluation Committee's recommendation to select the number 1 ranked proposer, direct staff to negotiate and enter a contract for a not-to-exceed amount of $2,446,678.
And this matter passed the Operation Committee on the 22nd.
Mr.
Are
Chairman.
there any questions?
I do have a comment. And the specter, this is a technical comment. The specter of HB 353, I've heard it commented here that could potentially bring to a halt work program. I mean, it's out there, it could potentially happen. If you engage in a contract of this nature, is there a language there that protects us from being liable for something that we may not be able to proceed with?
Yes, sir, there is. We have standard language that says that our contracts are contingent to budget availability, and we also have a clause for termination for convenience.
Thank you.
Any further questions on item A? If not, is there a motion? Moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're now on B.
MDX procurement contract, MDX 1306, toll system support services, $22,109,078.82, which was endorsed by the Operations Committee on 1/22/14. Approval of amendment number 1 to cooperative purchasing agreement with TransCore for toll system support services.
All right, this was approved by the Operating Committee on the 22nd. Is there further, are there any questions on this item? Huh? Okay. Well, first of all, let me see if there are any further, are there any questions at this point? If not, Mr. Toledo, Why don't you further explain this?
Board members, just a quick recap. This is if you recall, in November of last year, we presented to the board the option of going with the cooperative purchase agreement with the Turnpike contract. This is the negotiated contract total, which includes the inlane equipment for all of 836 and Stairway 112. It also includes the AVI equipment, which is the antennas and the readers. As a point of disclosure, the AVI and equipment, the AVI and readers was never part of the original estimate. It was always intended to be purchased by the agency, regardless of the vendor that was going to be selected. The estimate that we presented in November was approximately $20 million. We did negotiate under the $20 million cap or the estimate, and the total inlane will be, with all the incidental services that we negotiated, such as MOT and Fiber Connect and et cetera, it came out to $19.8 million. As a point of disclosure, which I failed to mention at the Operations Committee meeting, but I do want to make sure that everybody understands, this contract, this negotiated amount does not include any of the improvements or does not take into consideration the construction of the projects that are coming online, such as the 836-28 or any widening of those contracts. What we will be looking to do as part of those contracts is mitigate the exposure of having to redo or add equipment or add any new ORT zones through the design-build process. There will be toll ramps which will relocate, gantries that are going to be constructed under the current project. But again, what we're going to be doing in order to mitigate future costs is try to mitigate that through design. And then once we know what our exposure is, we will require an amendment to this contract for those new lanes or relocated areas. But again, we're going to be mitigating through the design to try to lessen that, to make that as least expensive or at least less the cost to MDX.
And the contract, I assume, would include the language that would permit us to re-enter into the discussion for mitigation.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any questions?
Unrelated, Mr. Chairman, when the appropriate time, I will have a question regarding the procurement report for the executive director. I'll be stepping out on item C, so if you want me to, I'll wait till then.
Does that impinge on the vote on B?
No, sir.
Okay, so I'll recognize you as soon as we vote on this thing. Is there further discussion on item B? Is there a motion to approve item B? Moved. Is there a second? It's been seconded. Further discussion on item B?
I have a question.
Question?
Mr. Toledo just pointed out something that's extremely important. Very important. Do we have any idea at this time how many lanes, how many new antennas, how many everything it's going to add to what it is that we have here?
I can tell you that we have approximately 4 or 5 ramps that will be reconfigured as part of the 836-28 project. Because we don't know how we can mitigate those impacts now until we have the design-build team on board and then working with the integrator, there's an opportunity that we may not incur any cost because we can relocate the entire system over to the new location. So until we know until we figure that out, we don't know how much we're going to be able to mitigate. If I had to put our number out there right now and say that we're just going to go ahead and do new lanes and then decommission old lanes, you're looking at 5 single-lane ramps at the cost of, I think it's about $350,000 per single-lane ORT zone. We are going to look to mitigate that by not having to do new zones, but relocate existing. And that way, it's going to be much more significant savings, or basically balance it out. It's an even zero cost.
Okay, further questions? We already have a motion and a second on item B. Is there further discussion? If not, favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye. Mr. Rodriguez-Pena.
I just had a question to the executive director and staff. In reviewing the procurement report, I see that you have, I'm still a relatively new board member, and some of these things are still...
Can't use that anymore.
I know, I tried. I don't understand some of the, so my question is predominantly related to where it says contract modifications continued, and specifically to, I guess, item RFP 1107, All Vision. In your contractual change, it says, extend the contract term to allow for All Vision to develop and execute a separate agreement. So that to me sounds like a very definitive agreement that we've agreed to do that. So I didn't know if that was something that I missed.
No, it's.
'Cause I thought it was just a proposal that we're considering.
Yeah, and you're correct. It's to develop, and then at the will of the board, of the committee, to execute. And that window of time, the 45 days, was the window that I needed to be able to execute that, since we moved the operations committee from January 15th to January 22nd.
And that 45 days is beginning when to when?
January 16th, and it expires 45 days later. So it gives us enough time to hear it at the next operations committee, take into account whatever comments the committee has, and then take it to the board, if that's the will of the committee.
Okay, so that no direction has been given to, again, develop and execute. Execute's a very strong word, means it's very definitive, but,
No.
okay, so it's basically a proposal that will be considered and
Right.
presented at a future point in time.
The 45-day window is to be able to consider and then execute at the will of the board.
Or not, right?
Or not.
Right.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any other issues on item C? Mr. Director, why don't you?
Mr. Chair, if I could read it into the record.
Yeah, please.
MDX procurement contract number RFQ 1401 Advertising Services, which was endorsed by the Intergovernmental and Public Communications Committee on 1/22/14. Approval of negotiated contract with Machado Garcia Serra, LLC.
Director?
Yeah, for an amount not to exceed $3 million during the 3-year term.
Can you repeat that?
For an amount not to exceed $3 million during the 3-year term. And I'd like to turn it over to Mario Diaz, who can walk us through any particulars or answer questions.
Board members, if you remember, last month you had requested that during negotiation of this contract, we set a cap. Staff has recommended $3 million for the initial 3-year terms, and also the yearly budget is subject to the operations budget that you set forth on a yearly basis.
All right, anything else?
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Questions?
just
Yes.
also a clarification, it's based on task authorizations. It's not just open-ended.
Yes, it's based on task authorizations.
And it doesn't mean they have to spend the $3 million either. Just wanna make that on the
As is
record.
customary,
Thank
the contract amount is an upper limit, and based on operations budget that is set forth by the board, we can
On a
either-
yearly basis.
On a yearly basis, we can either reach that limit, not meet that limit, or exceed that limit. If we exceed that limit, it requires board approval of an amendment to that contract and budgetary approval
And
as
again,
well.
it's on a task authorization.
One more question, if I may.
Go ahead.
On the
Mr.
issue of the
Fernandez.
$3 million, does this include media placement costs?
It includes all of the services.
Further questions? Any comments? Is there a motion on item C? There's a motion, is there a second? Further discussion on item C? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? So this also passes unanimously. Information items.
If there's any other comments or questions on the procurement report, available to answer them.
Go ahead, Mario.
I just wanted also to point out that MGS is a new vendor with MDX that has never done work with us before.
On my comments, first of all, we have, as you know, the resignation of Felix Azarte. And as you know, Felix was many years on this board. He was not only a board member, he was also chair. And so I think it is appropriate that whatever we do for former board members and former chairman, that we should do.
I spoke with Mr. Lasarte and made him aware that we'd be inviting him on February 25th to the board meeting.
The FTC had a joint meeting with Team Metro. I think it's been one of the better meetings that we've had in a long, long time. There were many members that were here. Gonzalo Sanabria is our representative on Team Florida, and he was there for the full meeting. I think we've heard the secretary's. The secretary was upbeat but also cautious, as we all are concerned as to what's going to happen with the transportation bill in a very, very divided Congress under very complicated circumstances. I'm sure the president in his State of the Union speech tonight will make reference to it, hopefully, and we'll see where we're going on that. The big item that is over our head, of course, is not the reality of House Bill 353, right? But just the mere presence of it, the negative impact that it has, potentially has, on our situation. Fausto Gomez is here, and he, by the way, just celebrated a birthday that I won't mention the number, but I wish I were that young. So happy birthday, Fausto. It's a serious problem, not because, in my opinion, it's going anywhere, because I don't think it's going anywhere. But in the legislative process, one never knows. There are a lot of alternatives. It could pass the House and not pass the Senate. If it passes the House and passes the Senate, the governor, of course, has veto power over it. There are a lot of things that are involved, but under any circumstances, if nothing happens, and I think that's the way it's going to go, I think we're affected. If something happens but is substantially less than what the threat is currently, we're obviously affected even more. And so there are all kinds of different scenarios that evolve in this, and I think we have to be very cautious. In addition to that, we're going, hopefully, to the marketplace. We have a rating. We're going to be rated by 3 agencies, and we're very unsure as to how that's going to go. Hopefully, it'll go well. It certainly, we have an excellent record and an excellent picture to present, but 353 has to be disclosed. So all these things are volatile things that occur. So it is important for all the members of MDX to be on short-term availability over the month of February and March. Hopefully by that time, by the end of March, we'll have a better idea. It may extend into April. But I would say the next 3 months, in the, 17 years of existence of MDX, I don't think there's ever been 3 more important months where more things have accumulated on us. And even though I think we're going to come out of this thing in a very, very positive, and I'm very optimistic that in all senses this is going to work out well, we have to be aware. Now, in addition to that, there are so many things happening in the transportation world. Some of these things are happening right here in our backyard, which, for example, are you aware that there is an unsolicited proposal by a Spanish company, a very large Spanish company, in a joint venture with a Florida corporation that has maglev technology, and they are proposing to put a high-speed transportation system into Orlando Airport that would go from the airport to the convention center to Disney for $380 million, which is nothing. I mean, if they have the money and if they have the technology, and this is all private sector stuff. In other words, the state wouldn't put a penny. The governor, of course, is all excited about this, and well, he should be. If this thing pans out, it's going to completely change transportation, not only in the state of Florida, but in the United States, I mean, immediately. So things are happening. Some of the, for example, the Department of Transportation just awarded $25 million to Auburn University to further study platooning. Well, platooning comes, of course, from the U.S. Army in Iraq, and what they did is they platooned, they coupled 4 trucks together with only 1 driver. And of course, that works for buses also. And so the future of transportation is really on the balance, because if platooning works, and if you can carry in buses 200 people at a clip, that changes the whole formula of whether light rail, all the study that's going on, for example, and that our mayor in Miami-Dade County, Mayor Jimenez, is so excited about, it could be obsolete. In other words, light rail will then be yesterday's technology with either maglev or platooning. These are just 2 examples of things that we're on the cusp of. In other words, I'm not talking about Tomorrowland. I'm not talking about 10 years from now. I'm talking about in a year or 2. So there are a lot of things that are happening that will and could affect. So everything that we do, we really have to be very careful in how we plan and develop things, so that all of a sudden 5 years from now, my successor or our successors will say, well, why didn't these people 5 years ago, why weren't they more cautious in doing this? So the last thing I want to say is that we have the strategic master plan first discussion, and I happen to think that we're kind of behind schedule, even though this is what we're going to be looking at for the future. But the fact is that we haven't done a strategic plan in, what, over 10 years?
The last update to our master plan was in 2007.
2007, so it's 7 years ago.
It's been 7 years.
Yeah. So it's important that entities such as MDX do these strategic master plans, and it was an update because the actual last strategic plan was done 13 years ago.
Correct.
So we really haven't, we've done an update, which you did, but we have not done, but we have, I think you did, yeah?
Put things in perspective, and we budgeted
7 years ago.
the PUD.
But we haven't done a real strategic plan in the years that I've been here. I think, Gonzalo, you were here when we did the last one, which was 13 years ago. And so hopefully this will take all these different things that are going on into account and let us understand or at least project. I don't think that master plans are worth very much more than 5 years. I think every 5 years, that's as much as you can go. I think 10 years, it's just not, it's not going to happen. Gonzalo.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of comments, a couple of ideas that I think we should implement.
Please.
Through the chair's jurisprudence, I think can be done. When we were at Team Florida, which was a special session for public-private partnership, there was a lot of P3 investors there and developers. And when we unveiled the Miami Intermodal Center, there was a great deal of interest in that project. And then we also spoke about our public policy that we adopted here as a board to try to bring in non-toll revenues in order not to pressure toll increases. So we have a number of assets that can be joint ventured with P3 people. We have real estate assets. We also have a number of unfunded projects in the billions of dollars. And some of those P3 principals stated that they would love to have the opportunity to have a workshop here in Miami sponsored by MDX in which we can lay out the unfunded project opportunities and also some of our real estate assets, and have them come up with some ideas as to what can be done with those assets. The second thing, Mr. Chairman, is that I would take a very proactive stance in terms of the unintended consequences that are looming out there on HB 353. I would request that you contact personally and seek interviews with all the bill sponsors and have an explanation of all the ramifications of what it all entails through perhaps Fausto Gomez's office up there in Tallahassee. The third thing, Mr. Chairman, and I spoke about this at the Budget and Finance, it's Vice Chair Gutierrez's insistence that perhaps a frequent discount payer program can be implemented prior to the scheduled unveiling of it in 2015. I would like to hear a report at the next board meeting or the next committee as to if this can be done prior to that date. So those are the three things I'd like to add.
Well, to item number 2 and 3, I have no problems, and we can just make it into a directive. I don't think we have to have any motions of that. But unless somebody objects, we'll make it into a directive to you, Mr. Director, that you comply with the request of Member Sanabria.
We will be bringing that frequent user program to Budget and Finance next month. Full report to the board.
And with regards to a workshop, I think we need to at least get a little bit into the master plan before we get into a workshop. But I think that sometime in the middle of the year, of the calendar year, in other words, in June or July, perhaps that might be an appropriate time for us to have a workshop once the MIC is finalized, once we have an idea of which way we're going, and the board has had an opportunity to look at alternatives and select which way we want to go in the next 5 or 10 years, if that's all right with you. Okay, any other comments, questions? Anything else? If not, is there a motion for us? We have announcements. The announcements have already been made in the previous meeting, which was the strategic plan on the 30th at 10 a.m. and the Board of Directors meeting on the 25th. Anything else?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Ms. Gutierrez.
Thank you. I have a question for the Executive Director. Can you give us an update on the process where you are as coming back to us for in-house counsel selection?
Yes, I forgot. Absolutely. The final 2 interviews of candidates are going to be held with staff on January 30th. That's this week. Once those 2 interviews are done, I'm going to look at the 4 candidates and recommend 3 to come before the board. I've already asked board secretary to start polling board members of what day would be appropriate to hold the interviews, but I think we have strong candidates to bring before the board. So it is my intent that this will be brought back to this board this month, this coming month. Thank you.
Mr. Sanabria, in one of your comments about the House bill and the other things that are going on, I have a meeting with Deputy Chief of Staff Rachel Cohn in Tallahassee on March the 4th. And I will take up that matter with her, and I may end up seeing the governor at that point. And I will also keep him informed as to our concern and where we are. Okay? Anything else? Is there a motion for adjournment? It's been moved. Second. Further discussion? All those in favor of adjournment say aye. We are adjourned.